Hey, what's up guys? BJ Dell back with an all new weekly art challenge review video. If you guys are new to the channel and don't know how this works, basically every Wednesday I do one of these videos and give you an art challenge word of the week. Then you hop on over to Facebook and post your designs based on that word. In the Keep Creating, Learn, Draw, Share art community, the link is in the description below for that. Or you can send them to me, email, Instagram, Twitter. I'll give you the links at the end of the video. But then you post your designs in the group, get feedback from everybody, and then that following Wednesday, I handpick a group of designs to do one of these videos on. It doesn't matter, it can be digital, it can be traditional artwork. We just want to see what you guys come up with. And for these videos, want it to be said, I don't necessarily pick the best of the week. It's not a full-on contest. So I don't pick the best, I don't pick the worst. It's basically a group of designs that I think have something that stands out that I can use as a teaching tool in these videos. And then I do these videos on Wednesday. So you have from Wednesday when I post this video until the following Wednesday morning to get yours submitted to possibly be featured in these videos. So now that we've got that out of the way, last week's word was giraffe. So let's see what you guys came up with. Right guys, let's go ahead and hop into the video all about giraffes this week, and the first one up is from Nicole. And the reason I picked this one, number one, traditional. Like I always say in these videos, it doesn't matter if you're using an iPad or if you're using a computer or just going traditional with, you know, pencils, inks, paints. It doesn't matter. Share the work you guys are making. And this one is just really, really cool. I love the character design of it. Just the overall look is fantastic. I like the way the neck comes down here, you know, super thin, and then comes out here thicker, and it kind of comes into this bulbous part at the top. But the real key here, and I talk about it a lot in the Cartooning 101 videos, and something I wanted to bring up with this one, as you can see Nicole's kind of process laying underneath here with the sketch lines. So in those videos, I always talk about, you know, learning to see shapes in different objects that you're making, starting out with those basic foundations of drawing. It's really going to help you become a better artist, and you're going to be a lot more comfortable doing different types of work that you might not usually be used to. And you can kind of see the process you use. So you've got, you know, this circle here that kind of comes down in this circle here, and then these are connected here, and you can kind of see the sketch lines and the thought process that went into it. And I really want to urge you guys and kind of challenge you to approach your designs this way. Eventually, you know, as you go along, some of the lines here and there are going to get less and less, and you won't need as many of the foundations as you're drawing. But I think this is perfect, and probably would be the way that I would start out too, even now, just, you know, using these basic shapes to start creating the overall design. So that's what I really want you to take away from this one. Nicole did a super, super good job. So thanks so much for sharing that. Next up is Farren's, and let me pull up some of the comments here on the post. So this one, Farren said, sketched in Illustrator and colored in Photoshop. And this one's just really great. I love the colors. Even though with the background being black and this being brown here, I think it pops really nice. The pink is just a great choice for those headphones, and I love the kind of contrast between, you know, this really bright, almost neon pink and the rest of it. It just really draws your eye in, and the overall shape that everything takes here. You've got this curve here that kind of flows really nice and natural, and I like how this down here cuts off into this kind of, you know, sharp taper here. It just has a really dynamic flow to it, and you can kind of just picture this giraffe, you know, head swaying back and forth with the neck turning as it's listening to the music. And I think it's just really, really well done. So just, yeah, fantastic job. Thanks so much for sharing that this week, Farren. Next up is Patrick, and Patrick, this was actually his first post in the group. So number one, welcome. Thanks for sharing, Patrick. And this one's just really great. Character design, once again, I love the look of the giraffe. It's drawn really well, has a lot of personality to it, and I like just the overall technique that you used. The thing that really stands out with this is the use of depth of field. Really makes this pop. So a lot of times people will try to throw depth of field in there and blur out the background to some kind of mixed results sometimes. But this one is done really well just because there's actually different levels of that depth of field. So this background with the trees is blurred quite a bit, But because the giraffe's neck is so long, the head is going to be the closest thing sticking out to you in this picture. And then what he did with this is the neck here, you can see, is also blurred. It's not as blurred as the background because it's not as far away as the background. So this is a really skilled job at knocking out that depth of field and done really well. Patrick just killed this by using those different techniques. So on something like this, and I'm not sure the approach that you took on this, Patrick, but you know, if you were trying to recreate this, obviously your background would be a different layer, so that way you could adjust the blur effect on there. And then, you know, the head would be a different layer, and then this body, that would be a different layer to give you those total control over everything. I'm not sure if that was the approach you used. That's how I would do it. Of course, you could always go in and use some different techniques to achieve the same results. But for me, that would be the quickest. But I love the look of it. That just the different levels makes it really look 3D and is done really well. And the shadowing and highlights are done fantastic too. I love how this shadow here comes down and around where, you know, the head's giving off that. And just overall, it's a really, really cool look and a cool design. So thanks so much for sharing that this week, Patrick. Next up is Marisol's. And let's see, pull up the listing for this one. My first draw, and then even include the little note, hi, give her a tip to paint with Procreate without leaving the lines, please. So this one's really cute. I like the color scheme. It's very kind of subdued, natural, muted. It's not super bright, and I like that on this one. Almost has that kind of watercolor approach to it. And then the design of the giraffe itself too is really cute too. I love the little eyelids here that comes and wraps around, and then the extra little creases under the eyes I think are really well done here. So getting to the request of give her a tip to paint with Procreate without leaving the lines. So here's a couple of options. I went ahead and just did the lines here just for the giraffe and the tree. So these are a little bit darker than what you went with, but the one thing to keep in mind, the only way that you're really going to be able to paint in the lines without leaving the lines is you need to make sure that all of the lines are connected. There's no gaps. So to be able to do this, like this here, switch to a darker color here, this would need to be connected. Same thing over here on the tree. All this open space here, this needs to be connected. So that's what I did on this. Like I said, it looks a little bit darker, but I wanted to have it show up on the screen and kind of be able to illustrate this example for you. So, a couple of different approaches. The way that I do my illustration work, it's very bright, it's very bold, cartoony, cel-shaded look. So my approach to this would be different than getting the same look that you got, but we're going to go over both. So the first thing, like I said, make sure all of these are connected. There's no gaps. Now from here, what you can do, this is going to be, I've got it labeled example here. This is going to be your line layer. We need to set this to reference. So we've got that set to reference and made a new layer underneath that. So anything that we drop and fill is going to use this line layer as our reference layer to tell this layer where to put the colors that we're dropping in. So the way that I approach, coloring is I would just drop this in like that. Once again, I'm on that layer that I made underneath the line layer. Line layer is set to reference. And then from here, you can change the colors. And, oops, I think I'm on the wrong layer again. No, I'm on the right one. There we go. And, you can just drop everything in, making sure to not touch the lines. When you touch the lines, it's going to fill in the lines or it's going to fill around and it's going to look really weird. Now, if you are getting some jaggy lines when you're filling in, it means your color drop threshold is not turned up high enough. Or if you're filling in everything on the screen, it means one of two things. Either the color drop threshold is turned up too high or you have a gap in your lines. So I'll show you here. When you drop this in, hold down your pencil and you see color drop threshold up here. As you slide this from left to right, it's going to adjust this higher and lower. If you get it too low, this is when sometimes you'll have those lines. You'll have like a white jagged line here. If you have it turned up too high, it's going to fill in everything. So usually I just try to get it ever so slightly back to the left until it doesn't fill in everything. Then you know it's going to come close enough to those lines that you're not going to get those white areas. And then from here, you can just basically go through, change your colors, and drop everything in. Now, as you can see, as I'm doing this, this looks a lot different than that kind of nice muted watercolor approach that you took here. So to be able to achieve this same look, we're going to do it a little bit different here. So I still have the lines set to reference. I'm going to make a new layer, pull this underneath the line layer, like so. Now, just to make this easier to see, I'm going to change the background color to like a red. And then I'm going to change my color. Oops. I'm going to go back up to this line layer, or this color flats layer. That's basically what this is going to be. I'm going to change my color to white. So now what I'm going to do, using that same technique that we just used, I'm going to drop in white on everything. And I want this to all fill in white. And then some of this I can just do by hand coloring because it might be quicker than trying to get it exactly in those areas. Same thing here. I'm just going to kind of fill this in along the sides rather than dropping in that white color on every single one of these. It's going to be a little bit more time consuming, so let's just do this real quick. Okay. And then of course here we can do the leaves, but I'm not going to do that just for the sake of time. So now that we've got that done, let's go ahead and turn our background color back to white. So now it doesn't look like we did anything right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to make a new layer now. We want this layer in between the line layer and the color flats layer here, which is basically white right now. We're going to click on this and we're going to set this as clipping mask. So basically what this is going to do, anything, you see this little arrow, anything that's colored in down here is what it's going to reference for this layer. So if we kind of use your technique with this, like I said, kind of like the almost watercolorish look, let me kind of change to a different thing here. Just do water bleed. Now, once we're on this layer, we can start coloring in, and when we get to the edge, you will see it does not come out. So this gives you the ability to kind of stay in the lines since you colored this bottom layer in white, and that'll keep everything inside the lines. It's a little bit more, I know, work, and it takes a little bit more time, but that's going to be, you know, your best bet in kind of getting that look that you want to, you know, not go out of the lines. Like I said, just keep in mind, you've got to have all those lines connected, and then you've got to use this technique of setting the reference and then the white color flats with the clipping mask here. So hopefully that explained that for you, but fantastic job, Marisol. I absolutely loved this one this week, and hopefully those tips helped you out going forward. Let me know down in the comments if it did. Next up is Scott and GIRAFFE. Love it. Fantastic. Talk a lot in some of the previous videos too about, you know, using different colors and complementary colors and what colors look good next to, you know, the other colors. There's times though that honestly just going with a simple black and white design is the way to go, and I think this is a perfect example of that. This just really pops. It has just a very kind of stark, just bold take on the design, and I think it works really, really well. Just kind of picturing this colored in. Of course, if it's colored correctly, you know, it could look good, but I think that something would be lost by coloring this in, and I like the simplicity of the black and white. The overall design is just fantastic. I like the kind of thick, bold lines that have kind of this nice angular feel to them. Same thing with the dreads up here. Just really cool having that kind of white reflection on here to give those kind of some volume and some shape and definition. Is just really, really well done. And I think the trees down here, nice little touch to kind of balance everything out. That's the other key thing with this, is just the composition is great. The way that the giraffe's neck comes from the bottom, his head's kind of centered in the center here as far as from left to right, and then it kind of balances everything else out by having the trees and then the text down here. And same thing with the text. I really like that. It looks hand drawn, and I think you did a fantastic job with that. So really, really great job, Scott. And let me see if there was anything else that you included with that one. First submission as well, so I thought that's why I wanted to look it up. So welcome to the group, and thanks so much for sharing. Fantastic job. Next up is Heike. I think I pronounced that right, hopefully. And this one is really, really cool. New to drawing, Heike says, painting, Procreate, and not perfect in English language. But hey, welcome to the group, and I'm glad that you submitted. And this one I really like. As you can see, it's very loosely sketched. It's got, no exact, perfect line definition here. There's a lot of sketchy lines, and I think that works really well. It gives a kind of sense of just energy to the overall drawing. It's very dynamic, and that continues on with the coloring. I absolutely love the bright colors. Obviously not something that is going to be seen in nature, but, drawing stuff like this it's fun to kind of break away from realism, and this definitely works, and I think it makes the design just that much more energetic and vibrant using these different colors. It's got a very just a bright and just fun, youthful appearance to it. And not only that, and if you stop there, it would have been a good design, but I really like the paint splatter and using these different colors that are the base of the design and the neck down here as this kind of splatter effect around. I just think this one works really well. It's a lot of fun, and it just kind of sparks the imagination and kind of just makes you happy by looking at it. So fantastic job. I absolutely loved that one. Next one up is Marilyn, and if you haven't noticed yet, I've got more this week than what I usually do, but there were so many different ones that I kind of saw that I could talk about, so that's why this video is going to last a little bit longer, so hopefully you guys are still watching. So Marilyn says, this is a big first for me, first post, first challenge, and first giraffe. I love Procreate, especially seeing the film bit, and then she also attached kind of the video of the creation process. So this one I really love. I love the colors. I think it's really well done. Colors are really spot on, and the overall shading technique, I think you did a fantastic job with. This just looks like a really nice painterly style through here that I really, really love. I think it's done really well, and just for starting out with Procreate, I think you did a fantastic job. One thing that I would say by looking at this one that I would kind of try to do when you're using this style, like I said, it's got a very nice painterly style to it, but when you use hard lines around here, it kind of pulls away from the look of the rest of it. So instead of using these hard lines, I would probably go in and, let's see, there's a few different ways that you can do this. If you use the smudge tool here, you could kind of soften those lines up. Of course, you're not going to have a ton of control when you do this, so that might not be the best choice depending on the colors that are butted up against here, because these are kind of all blend together. So that's one possibility, that you could use the smudge tool to kind of lighten these up and soften them up. The other thing that you could do as well, let me just go in and kind of erase this real quick. We're just gonna erase the lines, and you can do this here to just basically lighten that up as well. Or once you do that, you can still kind of see the line is what I'm going for there. Or you can just totally erase that. Go back in with actually let's just go with the airbrush. And let me erase these a little bit more here. So we just got that white kind of around there. And then going in with the airbrush, then we can kind of just darken this in just a little bit. So you're basically, letting those colors do more of the work, and you can kind of darken it up as you go, but you don't want to get too dark with this line because you don't want it to look like it's outlined, is kind of the idea that we're going for here. And this one takes some time. You're going to have to build it up to get the look right. But using this color here as a reference and just going a little bit darker down here so we can kind of shade underneath there. So it doesn't actually look like it's got that hard line to it. And then once you pull back, you can see it blends a little bit better. And then it's just kind of a back and forth motion with this to get it to look right. This would obviously take quite a while to do the whole thing, so I'm not going to do that. But just building this up, just kind of like what you did up here, playing around with that, and just using the basic colors to kind of form the outline rather than actually using an outline, I think on something like this is going to make it pop and look a lot better. So give that a try and see, but really enjoyed seeing your work and super glad you joined the group and decided to share. So thanks so much, Marilyn. And last but not least this week is Fernanda, and let me see what Fernanda put. Baby Giraffe, still new at this, especially digital art. Bought my iPad 4 days ago. I struggle a lot with shading and highlighting, but as we say in Brazil, done is better than perfect. Sorry for my English, not my mother language. Well, once again, welcome to the group, and I'm glad you shared. And your English is fine. I totally understand it, so no worries there. But a really cute design. I like the framing here with this background, and it's a really good choice on colors too. If we go in here, you can kind of see that these colors are set across the color wheel, so they're good complementary colors and work really well to kind of make the contrast pop on there. So great job there. The overall design, super adorable. This would be something that you could definitely see, you know, on products in like a nursery or something for super young kids. And I think the design itself is really great. Based on what you said with struggling with highlights and shadows, a couple things to bring up here. So we've got the light source coming in from this way. So this is going to be the highlighted part. This back here is the shadow part, which you've got in here. So you got the highlights here, shadow here. The only problem is you can kind of see here, the shadows or the highlight here is pretty light, but you've got the shadow coming down or the highlight coming down here, which is pretty light. But back here you have a super bright highlight. This white is a lot brighter than this. And this is also the part where the shadow comes in. So the key here is to make sure you don't want to overlap shadows and highlights, and especially when you're starting to use some of those lighter, brighter colors. If you're using two different sets of shadows like this, you want to make sure that if you do that with that highlight, it's actually stacked on top of your lighter highlight. So by using this brighter highlight, we can do that over top of this lighter highlight over here. Same thing with these. Your light source is coming in here, so you would want these highlights to be kind of over here. This is going to be on the back side to where the shadows would be actually. So you want to make sure that you don't have the highlights there, especially those super bright highlights. Same thing with this one. It's butted right up against the shadow here, so you want to make sure that those are moved over to this side and just kind of follow that along. Also, the way that this goes here with this shadow, kind of pull this down and around so it kind of follows the flow of the face and the contour and how that would work. But a really fantastic job. So thanks so much for sharing that this week. And those were some of the submissions for Giraffe. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Also, thanks to everybody that participated this week. I think, honestly, Giraffe has been the craziest amount of submissions we've ever had in 1 week. It was so awesome to see everything that you guys came up with. It was really mind-blowing, and can't wait to see what happens next. So shout out to everyone that participated. Shout out to everyone that submitted, that got in the video, too. I appreciate you guys a lot for letting me use your artwork in these videos and helping other people out. If you liked today's video too, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so you can get alerted when I post new videos. So last week's word was giraffe, and for this week, I hopped on over to the Patreon Discord and gave a shout out over there to see what everybody wanted to do this week. So this one comes from Patreon. If you guys want to help support the channel and back me on Patreon, the link is in the description below for that. There's a bunch of different levels that you can join at, and one of the key things that you get no matter what level you join is the Discord channel group. So we've got a bunch of us on there that talk back and forth daily, and it's a pretty cool place to just kind of do a group chat. So hopped on there, and the overall consensus that we went with this week is urban legend. So this should be fun because we've got Halloween coming up, so there's a lot of stuff that can tie in with that. Plus the group's getting so big and subscribers are getting so big that people are coming from all over the world. So it's gonna be really cool to see like geographical backgrounds, what urban legends you guys are gonna post that maybe some of us haven't heard of because we're in different parts of the world. So should be a lot of fun. But if you want to hop on over to Facebook, post them there. If you don't have Facebook, you can find me online, bjdell.com. My email address is found on there, or you can tag me on Instagram or Twitter. I'm on there at bjdell. So until next time, keep creating.